Millionaire in a Coma finds hope when a stranger black woman cares for his son until everyone starts laughing. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss what's next. Cassian Thorne was a very rich businessman. He worked in a tall office building and spent almost every night working late. One evening, he stared out the big office window at the bright city lights. He had so much work to do, but he was tired. His phone buzzed. It was another message from Leo's nanny. She had already called 3 times this week, saying Leo was misbehaving. Cassian sighed and rubbed his forehead. Leo was only 7, but he was having a hard time. Cassian's assistant, Anya, came into the room. "Mr. Thorne, your mother is on the line again," she said. Cassian groaned. "Tell her I'll call back tomorrow." Anya shook her head. "She says it's about Leo, something about him acting up at school." Cassian grabbed the phone and braced himself. "Hello, Mother," he said. "Cassian, darling, we need to talk about Leo well." Genevieve's voice was sharp. "He was fighting on the playground. Fighting! What kind of father lets this happen?" "He's just going through a phase," Cassian said tiredly. "This wouldn't be happening if you let me raise him. He needs structure and discipline. Nannies don't care about him," she scolded. Cassian clenched his jaw. "Leo is my son, not yours. Clearly you're not handling anything. You work too much. He's crying out for attention. If your father were alive—" "Don't bring Dad into this," Cassian snapped. "I have a meeting. Goodbye." He hung up, knowing his mother would be furious, but he didn't have time for this. His company had a big deal falling apart, and if he didn't fix it, the whole business would suffer. He grabbed his briefcase and ran out into the rainy night. The streets were wet and the rain poured hard. Cassian rushed to his car, holding a newspaper over his head. He was late for his meeting across town. Traffic was slow, and he tapped his fingers nervously on the steering wheel. His phone rang again. It was the nanny. He sent it to voicemail. He'd deal with Leo's problems later. Lightning flashed. Thunder boomed. Cassian squinted through the rain-streaked windshield. He thought about pulling over, but then he imagined his mother's smug face if he missed this meeting. The traffic light turned yellow, and he pressed on the gas. He didn't see the truck running the red light until it was too late. Crash! Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Cassian's world spun in circles. His last thought before everything went black was of Leo's tear-streaked face the last time he saw him. Days passed in a blur of hospital machines and quiet whispers. Cassian was in a coma, lying still in a big hospital bed. His mother, Genevieve, rushed in and took control of everything. She took charge of Cassian's company and of Leo. She told the board of directors it was only temporary, but days turned into weeks, and Cassian did not wake up. At first, Leo visited his father every day. He would hold his dad's limp hand and whisper, "Please wake up, Daddy." But after a while, Genevieve said the visits were too upsetting. She only let Leo visit once a week. The nanny quit because she couldn't handle Leo's tantrums. Genevieve hired a new one, then another, then another. None of them lasted. Leo became quiet and sad. "He needs discipline," Genevieve said. She sent him to a strict private school, but Leo only grew more withdrawn. At recess, he sat alone. In class, he barely spoke. When he did, it was to ask, "When will my daddy wake up?" One day, 3 months after the accident, Leo ran away from his nanny at the park. He found a quiet spot behind some bushes and finally let himself cry. He sobbed so hard his little body shook. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" a gentle voice asked. Leo looked up. A kind woman with dark curly hair knelt beside him. She handed him a tissue. "I'm Miss Baker, Alara," she said softly. "I'm a teacher at the elementary school down the street. Want to tell me what's wrong?" For some reason, Leo felt safe. He told her everything about the car accident, his father in the hospital, the endless nannies, and his grandmother who was always disappointed in him. Alara listened carefully and held his hand. She didn't scold him or tell him to stop crying. When he finished, she pulled cookies out of her bag. "My mother always said cookies make everything better," she said with a smile. Leo took a cookie and gave a small smile. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of warmth in his chest. Neither of them knew it yet, but this small act of kindness would change everything. Alara couldn't stop thinking about the sad little boy. She returned to the park every day at lunch, hoping to see him again. On the third day, she spotted him. "Miss Baker." Leo's face lit up. She smiled. "Hi, Leo. I brought extra cookies today. Want to share?" They sat together, and Leo talked more. He told her about the huge, cold mansion where he lived, his strict grandmother, and how much he missed his father. Alara's heart ached. She handed him paper and crayons. "Sometimes drawing helps," she said. Leo drew a picture of a small boy alone in a big house with a man in a hospital bed. Alara blinked back tears. The next day, Alara did something she'd never done before. She went to the hospital to visit Cassian Thorne. She told herself it was just because she cared about her student, but she felt there was more to it. Cassian's hospital room was large and fancy, but it felt cold. He lay still, machines beeping around him. Alara sat down beside his bed. "Mr. Thorne," she said softly, "you don't know me, but I met your son. He's hurting so much. He needs you to wake up." A nurse came in and raised her eyebrows. "Are you family?" "No," Alara admitted. "I'm his son's teacher." The nurse's expression softened. "Poor boy. I see him when his grandmother brings him. She barely lets him near his father. Says it's too upsetting for him." Alara frowned. "Does she visit often?" "Oh yes," said the nurse. "Every day. She talks about running his company and managing everything. Seems more interested in business than her son." Alara's heart broke for Leo. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about him alone in that cold house. She decided to help him. The next day, she approached Leo's nanny in the park. "I'm a teacher," Alara explained. "I could help Leo with his homework after school. He seems to need extra support." The nanny quickly agreed. She was happy to have less work. She didn't bother asking Genevieve. So Alara started visiting the Thorne mansion every afternoon. She helped Leo with his schoolwork, but more than that, she listened. She brought him books about adventures and magic. Slowly, Leo began to smile again. He even laughed sometimes. "Do you think Daddy can hear us when we visit him?" Leo asked one day, making a get well card. "I believe he can," Alara said gently. "That's why we should tell him about our day. Love can reach people, even when they're sleeping." "Will you come with me next time?" Leo asked hopefully. "Grandmother just stands there on her phone. She doesn't like me talking too much." Alara hesitated. She was already too involved. But looking at Leo's hopeful eyes, she said yes. That Saturday, Alara went to the hospital with Leo and Genevieve. Genevieve's perfect face showed surprise and annoyance, but she said nothing. Alara smiled warmly. "I thought I could help Leo read to his father," she said politely. Genevieve pursed her lips, but didn't argue. She sat in the corner with her phone, leaving Alara and Leo alone with Cassian. They read chapters from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Leo curled up in the chair by his dad's bed, calmer than he'd been in months. Alara's warm voice filled the room, making it feel cozy. Was it her imagination, or did Cassian's fingers twitch when Leo laughed? Alara thought she saw movement, but when she looked again, he was still. That night, Alara lay awake in her small apartment. She told herself she'd only help Leo until Cassian woke up. But deep down, she knew she was already part of their lives. 6 months passed. The Thorne mansion felt different now. Children's laughter sometimes echoed in the halls. Leo's colorful drawings hung on the refrigerator, shocking the housekeeper. Joy had quietly slipped in, despite Genevieve's efforts to keep things strict. One morning, Genevieve found Alara and Leo having a picnic in the garden. "This is unacceptable," Genevieve said sharply. "Leo, well, you know better than to eat outside like this." She shot Alara a cold look. "It's such a beautiful day, Mrs. Thorne," Alara said kindly. And Leo has been doing so well in school, I thought he deserved a reward. It was true. Leo's teachers noticed a big change in him. He was talking in class, making new friends, and even joined the science club. Genevieve, his grandmother, couldn't deny that Leo was doing better, but she didn't like how it had happened. Yes, well, Genevieve sniffed. Make sure he changes his clothes before we visit his father. I won't have him looking messy. After she left, Leo's smile faded. Why doesn't grandmother like you, Miss Baker? He asked softly. Alara's heart hurt. Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings about change, she said kindly. Don't worry about that. Now, tell me more about your science project. Later that afternoon, they went to the hospital. Something felt different. There were more nurses and doctors near Cassian's room, and Genevieve was arguing with a doctor in the hallway. What do you mean there are signs of consciousness? Why wasn't I told right away? Genevieve demanded. Alara held Leo's hand tighter as they walked closer. The doctor looked relieved to see them. Ah, you must be Leo, he said kindly. Your father is showing some good signs. His brain activity has gone up, and he's even moved on his own. These are very good signs. Leo's face lit up. Is he going to wake up? We hope so, said the doctor. It could be today or maybe next week, but things are moving in the right direction. Genevieve quickly took charge. Leo, say goodbye to Miss Baker. This is family time now. But Leo clung to Alara's hand. Please let her stay. Dad likes when she reads to us. Don't be ridiculous, Genevieve snapped. Your father doesn't even know who she is. Actually, the doctor interrupted, coma patients often respond to familiar voices. If Miss Baker has been reading to him regularly, her presence might help him. Genevieve's face tightened, but she couldn't argue with the doctor. They all went into Cassian's room together. The air felt tense. Leo sat by his father's bed while Alara pulled out a book to read. Genevieve paced near the window, her high heels clicking loudly. They were halfway through the story when it happened. Cassian's fingers twitched, his eyelids fluttered. Dad! Dad, can you hear me? Leo cried, grabbing his father's hand. Slowly, Cassian's eyes opened. He blinked several times, confusion on his face. Cassian! Darling! Genevieve rushed to his side. Thank heavens you're awake. We've been so worried. Cassian tried to speak, but his voice was rough from not talking for so long. A nurse gave him water. Leo, he croaked. His voice was weak, but full of love. You've gotten so big. Leo threw himself into his father's arms, tears streaming down his cheeks. Cassian hugged him as tightly as he could, his own eyes wet. Mother, Cassian said, looking past Genevieve to Alara. No one important? Genevieve said quickly, just Leowell's tutor. Now about the company. She takes care of me, Dad, Leo interrupted. She reads to us and helps me with homework. She makes everything better. Cassian looked at Alara with curiosity. You've been reading to me? Yes, Alara said softly. Leo needed someone to bring him here to visit you. It seemed to help him. It did help, Leo added. Tell him about the science fair, Miss Baker, and the book club. I'm sure your father doesn't need to hear about all that, Genevieve cut in. He needs rest. But Cassian ignored her. He was still looking at Alara. Actually, I'd like to hear about the science fair. Before Genevieve could argue, nurses and doctors filled the room to do tests. In the commotion, Alara slipped away quietly. As she walked to her car, she couldn't shake the memory of Cassian's intense gaze. She shivered, even though it was warm outside. Back in his hospital room, Cassian noticed how confident Leo had become. His once shy son was now cheerful and brave. What had happened while he was asleep? And who was this woman who had brought so much happiness to Leo's life? As doctors discussed his recovery and therapy, Cassian kept thinking about Alara Baker. She had done what money and his mother's strict rules couldn't. She'd made his son truly happy. I need to know more about her, Cassian whispered to himself, watching Leo chat with a nurse. Genevieve overheard. Her hands tightened around her expensive handbag. This was exactly what she feared. She had worked for 6 months to keep control of everything. She would not let some school teacher ruin it all. Oh, Cassian, she thought grimly, you have no idea what you're walking into. She pulled out her phone, already making plans to protect the Thorn name. The next few weeks were hard. Cassian struggled with physical therapy. His body was weak, and even simple things like holding a spoon or buttoning his shirt made him angry. The only bright spot was Leo's visits and hearing more about Alara Baker. Tell me about Miss Baker, Cassian asked Leo one afternoon. How did you meet her? Leo's eyes lit up. She found me crying in the park. The nanny wasn't watching me, and I was sad because you were sick. She gave me cookies and listened to me. She always listens. And she just started helping you, just like that? Cassian asked, struggling through an exercise. She's the best, Dad! She never makes me feel stupid. She makes learning fun. Did you know she helped me win first place in the science fair? From her chair in the corner, Genevieve sniffed. Leowell, your father doesn't need to hear every little thing. He needs to focus on recovery. But Cassian shook his head. No, Mother. I want to know everything I missed. Leo, tell me about the science fair. As Leo talked excitedly about his project on plant growth, Cassian studied him. His shy little boy had turned into a confident kid, and Alara Baker had helped make that happen. That evening, after Leo had gone home, Cassian confronted his mother. Why didn't you tell me how much Leo was struggling? About the nannies quitting. You were in no condition to worry about such things, Genevieve said, waving her hand. I handled it. By letting my son cry alone in parks? That's handling it? Cassian said angrily. Oh, please. Leowell was fine. He just needed discipline and structure. He needed love, Mother, and somehow this teacher gave him what we couldn't. Genevieve's face turned hard. Since you brought her up, we need to talk about Miss Baker. I had her investigated. You what? Cassian struggled to sit up straighter. It's my duty to protect this family, she said coldly. She's not our kind, Cassian, a public school teacher from a nobody family. And she spent a lot of time here reading to you while you were unconscious. Don't you find that strange? Cassian's temper flared. The only strange thing is how quick you are to attack someone who helped my son when no one else would. Before Genevieve could reply, there was a knock on the door. Alara stood there with a stack of books. I'm sorry, she said, starting to back away. I didn't mean to interrupt. Miss Baker, Cassian called. Please come in. Leo says, I have you to thank for all the stories I heard while I was away. Alara walked in, calm and steady. Cassian noticed her warm brown eyes and quiet confidence. She didn't shrink under Genevieve's cold stare. I hope you don't mind, Alara said. Leo thought you might like to hear the endings of some of the books we started. Mind? I've been dying to know what happened to that hobbit, Cassian said with a smile. Genevieve stood abruptly. Well, I can see I'm not needed here. Cassian will discuss business matters later. She swept out of the room. The tension eased. Alara sat in the visitor's chair, and for the first time, they really talked. She told Cassian about Leo's school progress, his little victories, and all the moments he'd missed. Cassian hung on every word. Thank you, he said suddenly. For what? Alara asked softly. For being there for him when I couldn't. Alara met his gaze. Leo is a wonderful boy. Vit, he just needed someone to see that. And what about you? Cassian asked. Why did you get so involved? A shadow crossed her face. I know what it's like to feel alone, to need someone in your corner. Once I met Leo, I couldn't just walk away. Cassian's heart tightened at her words. Before he could reply, his physical therapist arrived. I should go, Alara said, gathering her books, but I left the next chapter marked for you. Cassian watched her leave, feeling the room grow emptier. That night, alone, he opened the book she'd left. A note slipped out. Remember, every hero's journey has hard parts, but that's what makes the ending sweeter. Cassian traced her neat handwriting. His mother was right about one thing. Alara Baker wasn't like anyone in their world. She was better. Meanwhile, in her fancy office, Genevieve was on the phone. Yes, she said sharply. I want everything you can find on her. Every secret, every mistake. No one is as perfect as she seems. When she hung up, she stared out at the city lights. I won't let you ruin everything we've built, Miss Baker. The Thorn name means something in this town, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it. But deep down, Genevieve was worried. She'd seen the way Cassian looked at Alara like she was something rare and precious. Well, Genevieve thought grimly, we'll just have to fix that, won't we? Days later, Genevieve sat at her spotless desk, reading the file her private investigator had brought. Her red nails tapped the folder. A cold smile spread on her face. Well, well, Miss Baker, she whispered. Not so perfect after all. Inside were photos of Alara's small apartment, her old car, and her family's modest house. There was also information about a bankruptcy her parents had filed 5 years ago. Genevieve picked up her phone. Get me the board of trustees at the elementary school. We need to discuss their hiring practices. Back at the rehab center, Cassian was working hard with Alara's help. Leo sat nearby doing his homework. You're getting stronger every day, Alara said encouragingly as Cassian gripped the bars to walk. Just a few more steps. Cassian's face was sweaty. Easy for you to say, my legs feel like jelly. No, but I did teach Leo's whole class to dance for the school play, Alara teased. That was a workout too. Cassian laughed so hard that he almost tipped over in his wheelchair. Alara quickly reached out to steady him. Her hands were warm and strong as they held his arms. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither of them moved or spoke. Dad! Leo's excited voice broke the silence. Look what I got on my math test! Cassian gratefully sank back into his wheelchair while Leo ran over, proudly showing his paper with a big red A+ at the top. That's fantastic, buddy, Cassian said with a big smile. We should celebrate. Can we have pizza in the garden like Miss Baker and I used to? Leo asked hopefully. I don't see why not. Cassian smiled warmly. He turned to Alara. Would you join us? It's the least I can do to thank you for all your help. Alara opened her mouth to answer, but before she could, Elena swept into the room like a cold wind. Cassian, darling, she said sharply. You'll have to cancel any plans. The board has called an emergency meeting about the company. Mother, I'm not ready for this nonsense, Cassian said, frowning. You've been doing so well, and everyone is eager to see you back at the helm. I've already arranged for a car to take you to the office, Elena said firmly. Cassian looked uncertainly at Alara. She gave him an encouraging smile. Go on. Leo and I can celebrate another time. Actually, Elena cut in smoothly, Leowell will be coming with us. It's important to show a family appearance, you understand. She turned to Alara. And Miss Baker, since you're here, there's something we need to discuss. Alara felt a chill at Elena's voice, but nodded calmly. Of course. A few minutes later, Cassian and Leo were whisked away in the car, Cassian protesting all the way. Once they were gone, Elena turned to Alara with a predatory smile. Let's stop pretending, shall we? Elena said. We both know what you're doing. Alara's chin lifted. Helping a student who needed support, she replied steadily. Elena pulled a folder out of her bag and spread photographs on the table. A woman from your background suddenly spending so much time with one of the city's wealthiest families? How convenient that you just happened to find Leowell that day. Alara's hands clenched in her lap, but her voice stayed calm. If you're implying I planned this... I'm not implying anything, Elena interrupted coldly. I'm telling you it stops now. The school board might be very interested in your family's financial troubles. Small-town bankruptcy scandals can be so damaging to a teacher's career. Are you threatening me, Mrs. Thorne? Alara asked firmly. Not at all, Elena said with a fake smile. I'm offering you a choice. Leave now while you still have a job, or stay and watch everything you've worked for disappear. Alara stood slowly, lifting her chin high, her dignity like armor. You know what's sad, Mrs. Thorne? You have no idea what real wealth is. Leo has more richness in his heart than all your bank accounts combined. How dare you? Elena snapped. I'm not finished, Alara said softly but firmly. You can dig up whatever you want about my family's past. Yes, we struggled. Yes, we lost our home in the recession. But we never lost our integrity. Can you say the same? Wait a second. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and share your favorite part in the comments below. And don't forget to drop a heart to show your support. Elena's face turned red with rage. Get out and don't come back. I'll leave when Leo and Cassian tell me to leave, not before. Alara walked out, her head held high, while Elena's angry voice followed her. You have no idea what you're up against. But Elena's feeling of triumph didn't last. At the office, Cassian sat in the boardroom, listening with growing anger as board members explained all the decisions they'd made while he was unconscious. Decisions that had made Elena's allies richer and caused loyal employees to lose their jobs. Enough, Cassian said suddenly, slamming his hand on the table. This meeting is over. Tomorrow, we're reviewing every single decision made in the last 6 months. Cassian, Elena protested. You're not thinking clearly. The medication, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. Cassian turned to his son, who had been quietly drawing in the corner. Come on, buddy, we have a pizza date to keep. They went to the hospital garden and found Alara sitting on a bench, trying to look calm, though her face was pale. Leo ran and hugged her tight. Are you okay? Cassian asked softly. Alara managed a small smile. Nothing I can't handle, but your mother, she's very protective of your family. That's one word for it, Cassian muttered grimly. What did she say to you? It doesn't matter. Alara squeezed his hand. What matters is that you're getting stronger, and Leo is thriving. Cassian didn't let go of her hand. It matters to me. Their eyes met again, and this time there was no interruption. Leo looked between them, a hopeful smile spreading across his face. But across town, Elena was already on her phone, her eyes cold and calculating. If threats didn't work, she would try another approach. By morning, rumors would spread through their social circle, whispers of a gold-digging teacher taking advantage of a vulnerable family. Let's see how your integrity holds up under real pressure, Miss Baker, Elena said with a cruel smile. The whispers started small, a raised eyebrow here, a knowing look there. But by the time Cassian returned to work part-time, the rumors were everywhere. Did you hear about the teacher? One board member's wife whispered to another at a charity lunch. Apparently, she's been planning this for months. Researched the family, planned everything. I heard she's already moved into the mansion, another woman added, though it wasn't true. Using that poor little boy to get to his father's money. Alara first noticed something was wrong when parents at school began pulling their children away from her in the hallway. Then came emails from the principal warning her to maintain professional boundaries and avoid appearances of impropriety. One morning, Alara found an anonymous note in her mailbox. Gold diggers aren't welcome here. She crumpled it in her fist, fighting tears. She had faced prejudice before, but this was different. Now, it wasn't just her reputation on the line, it was Leo's and Cassian's too. Cassian noticed the changes as well. Business associates who had welcomed him back now seemed hesitant, their smiles fake. During meetings, he caught people exchanging glances when he mentioned Leo's progress or Alara's name. Finally, his old friend Bennett pulled him aside after a board meeting. Cassian, you know I'm on your side, but people are talking. This teacher, are you sure she's not taking advantage of you? Cassian's face hardened. Taking advantage by helping my son when everyone else was too busy with social climbing and business deals? Come on, Cassian, look at it objectively, Bennett said gently. A beautiful young woman from her background suddenly involved with one of the city's most eligible bachelors. I'm divorced, not widowed, Cassian snapped. And what exactly do you mean by her background? Bennett shifted uncomfortably. Well, she's not exactly from our circle, and there are rumors about her family's financial troubles. Get out, Cassian said, his voice deadly quiet. "And tell whoever's spreading these rumors they're playing a dangerous game." But the gossip only got worse. The situation finally came to a head at Leo's school during parent-teacher night. Alara overheard two mothers whispering in the hallway. "Can you believe they're letting her keep teaching after everything that's come out?" one said. "Well, you know how these people are," the other replied. "They see a rich man and—" Alara stepped around the corner, standing tall. The women looked embarrassed but didn't apologize. That night, Alara called Cassian. "We need to talk." They met in the hospital garden again. Leo was at home with a tutor. Alara had hired someone else to avoid any appearance of favoritism. "The rumors are getting worse," Alara said quietly. "They're affecting Leo at school. Some parents won't let their kids play with him anymore." Cassian reached for her hand. "I'll handle it. We can call a press conference, make a statement." "And say what?" Alara interrupted. "That I'm not a gold digger? That would only make things worse. Your mother's won, Cassian. She's turned everyone against me." "Not everyone," Cassian said softly. "Not Leo, and certainly not me." He wheeled closer to her. "Alara, look at me. Do you know what I see when I look at you?" She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I see the woman who saved my son's soul while I was in a coma. The woman who read to me for hours, not because she wanted anything, but because a boy asked her to. The woman who faces down society vultures with more grace than they'll ever have." Alara's tears spilled over. "Let them talk," Cassian said fiercely. "Let them spread their poison. They don't know you like I do, like Leo does. And this company can survive without small-minded investors. I've been doing my own digging, and some of my mother's decisions weren't legal. I have leverage." Alara's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm done letting fear of scandal rule my life. That's my mother's game, not mine." He took her hand. "Stay. Fight this with me. Show them what real class looks like." Before Alara could answer, they heard running footsteps. Leo came rushing into the garden, out of breath. "Dad, Miss Baker, come quick. Grandmother's on TV saying horrible things." They rushed inside to find Elena giving a live interview. She sat with a face full of fake concern. "As a mother," Elena said smoothly, "I have to protect my family from those who might take advantage of them. And while I'm sure Miss Baker means well—" Cassian switched off the TV, his face thunderous. "That's it, no more playing nice." "What are you going to do, Dad?" Leo asked in a small voice. Cassian looked at his son, then at Alara. For the first time, he saw his future clearly. It had no space for his mother's games. "I'm going to tell the truth," he said firmly. "All of it. About the company, about what happened while I was in a coma, about how your grandmother tried to push away the one person who truly helped us." "Cassian, no," Alara protested. "You can't risk everything for me." "I'm not risking everything," Cassian said, gripping her hand tightly. "I'm finally fighting for what matters. Leo needs you. I need you. The rest is just noise." Leo wrapped his arms around them both, creating a circle of love and trust no gossip could break. But across town, Elena watched her interview replay with satisfaction. "Just phase 1, she told her reflection in the TV screen. "By the time I'm done, she'll wish she'd never heard the name Thorne." What Elena didn't know was that one of her former board members was meeting with the SEC right now, sharing details of her secret deals. The house of cards Elena had built was about to fall, and no gossip could save her. The next morning, Cassian sat in his home office, stacks of financial documents all around him. His physical therapist had told him not to overdo it, but he'd been up all night, fueled by coffee and determination. "Mr. Thorne," said Anya, his assistant, peeking into the room. "Mr. Rossi from the SEC is here to see you." "Send him in," Cassian said, straightening in his wheelchair. Matteo Rossi entered carrying a thick folder. "Thank you for meeting so early," he said. "After reviewing the documents you sent—" "Just tell me, Matteo," Cassian interrupted. "How bad is it?" Rossi spread the papers across the desk. "Your mother has been busy. She created fake shell companies, shifted assets, backdated contracts. If even half of this is true, she could face serious charges. Cassian rubbed his temples. And the company? That's the thing. Most of these shady deals benefited her, not Thorne Enterprises. She built herself a safety net, probably planning for the day you woke up. Of course she did, Cassian muttered bitterly. Mother always has a backup plan. Just then his phone buzzed with a text from Alara. Turn on Channel 5. Now. Cassian grabbed the remote, turned on the TV, and felt his blood run cold. Genevieve was giving another TV interview, but this time she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was Amanda Chen, the head of the school board. We take any complaints about teachers very seriously, Amanda said in a serious voice. Miss Baker has been an okay teacher, but her recent actions make us question her judgment and her boundaries. Genevieve nodded and looked sad for the cameras. It breaks my heart to see how she tricked my grandson's feelings. She used a child to get close to a rich family. That is horrible. Cassian, Genevieve's son, watched the TV with anger. His hands clenched into fists. She's trying to get Alara fired, he said, furious. Rossi, Cassian's friend and helper, watched the news carefully. Mr. Thorne, he said thoughtfully, I found something interesting in these papers. It's about Mrs. Chen's husband's construction company. Across town, Alara was sitting in the principal's office. She was calm but upset. The principal was explaining to her that she was being put on administrative leave while they investigated. The board feels this is the best thing to do, he said quietly, not looking at her. You mean because of Genevieve Thorne's lies? Alara said angrily as she stood up. I've done nothing wrong. I only cared about a child who needed help. Miss Baker, please understand our position. Oh, I understand perfectly, Alara said. Her voice was strong, even though she was angry. You're scared of the Thorne family's power, but you know what? There are things more important than social status and money. She walked out of the office with her head high. People whispered about her, but she ignored them. In the parking lot, Leo was waiting by her car. You're supposed to be in class, Alara said gently. I heard what they did, Leo said, his eyes full of tears. It's not fair. You're the best teacher ever. Alara hugged him tightly. Sometimes life isn't fair, sweetheart, but that doesn't mean we stop doing what's right. Dad will fix it, Leo said confidently. He always fixes everything. Before Alara could answer, a shiny black car drove up. Cassian's driver helped him into his wheelchair, and Cassian came over to them quickly, looking determined. I need you both to come with me, he said. There's something you need to see. They drove to Thorne Enterprises. Inside, the board of directors was having an emergency meeting. Genevieve sat at the head of the table, looking proud and confident. Her smile faded when she saw Alara walk in with Cassian and Leo. What is she doing here? Genevieve snapped. This is a private board meeting. Yes, it is, Cassian said, wheeling himself to the front of the room. And we're going to talk about some very private matters, like where $10 million of company money went while I was in a coma. Genevieve's face turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about. All company transactions were properly authorized. By a fake company you created, Cassian said firmly. He pressed a button, and financial papers appeared on a big screen behind him. Or maybe we should talk about the bribes from Mrs. Chen's husband's construction company. The same Mrs. Chen who is trying to get Alara fired, Cassian continued. The board members looked uncomfortable, whispering to each other. You're making wild accusations, Genevieve said nervously. The board knows I'm loyal to this company. The board should know everything, Cassian interrupted. They should know how you used my coma to make yourself richer, how you used the company's power to ruin an innocent woman's name, and how you've been using your own grandson like a chess piece in your social games. Cassian, darling, you're not thinking clearly. The medication. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years, Mother, Cassian said, his voice calm but firm. Why? He asked softly. Why did you do all this? We're already rich. We already had everything we needed. Genevieve's face cracked and she finally shouted, We have a name to protect, a family legacy, and you're throwing it away for her. She pointed at Alara. No, Mother, Cassian said. You're the one destroying our legacy. A legacy isn't about money or status. It's about what we leave behind, about what we teach our children. Cassian looked at Leo, who stood proudly next to Alara. Right now, you're teaching my son that money matters more than love, that appearances matter more than truth. The room was silent. Genevieve looked around but saw no support from the board members. The SEC has been notified, Cassian said quietly. They will want to speak with you, Mrs. Chen, and others involved. You would do this to your own mother? Genevieve said, her voice shaking. You did this, Mrs. Thorne, Alara said softly. You made every choice, every scheme, every lie, every plan to hurt people who only wanted to help your family. That was all you. Genevieve's face twisted with anger. This is all your fault, she shouted at Alara. You turned my son against me. Enough, Cassian's voice cracked like a whip. Alara didn't do anything but love my son when he needed it most. She didn't lie or plan anything. She just cared, something you seem to have forgotten how to do. He pressed another button, and security guards came in. Please escort my mother to her office. The SEC agents will want to talk to her there. As Genevieve was led out, still yelling, Leo tugged on Cassian's sleeve. Dad, is Grandma going to jail? Leo asked quietly. Cassian looked at Alara. I don't know, buddy, but whatever happens, we're going to face it together. All of us. The board members left the room, and soon it was just Cassian, Alara, and Leo. Alara knelt by Cassian's wheelchair. You didn't have to do all this for me, she whispered. Cassian took her hand. I didn't do it just for you. I did it for us, for the family we can be. Leo hugged them both tightly, and for a moment they all felt strong together. But outside the boardroom, Genevieve sat in her office, staring at her phone. She had one last card to play, one last secret. With shaking fingers, she called a number she had promised herself never to call. Hello, she said softly. It's time. I need your help. The next day, the newspapers were full of headlines about financial crimes and SEC investigations. But in a small cafe across town, another drama was happening. I won't do it, said Silas Crow firmly. He looked at Genevieve across the table. Not even for you, Mother. Genevieve flinched at his words. 25 years ago, she had given up her first son for adoption. It was a secret so deep that even Cassian didn't know he had an older brother. You owe me this, Genevieve hissed. I found you, didn't I? I paid for your school. I gave you your business. Silas's handsome face was cold. Yes, in secret. Always in secret. Because you didn't want anyone to know you had a child out of wedlock. You gave me everything except your name, except a real family. Genevieve's hands tightened into fists. You don't understand. Cassian is throwing away everything we built for some nobody. No, Mother, you're the one who doesn't understand, Silas said, standing up. I've been watching. When you told me about Alara, I did my own investigation, and do you know what I saw? Love. Real love. Not your cold, fake, high society version of family. At the Thorne mansion, Alara was helping Cassian look through years of financial papers. Leo sat nearby, working on homework, but happy to be with them. Look at this, Cassian said, holding up a paper. Another fake company. But this one is different. The dates go back 25 years. Alara frowned. Griffin Enterprises, and look at these payments. Every month, money went to the same account. Cassian rolled over to his computer. Mother didn't want anyone to know about these payments. Let's find out who this company belongs to. As they dug deeper, they noticed the payments started right after Cassian's father died, when Cassian was only 7. The payments were made every month on the 15th. Dad, Leo suddenly shouted. There's a man watching our house. Cassian and Alara looked out and saw a tall, well-dressed man standing at the garden gate. He looked strangely familiar, even though Cassian was sure he'd never met him. Stay here. I'll handle this, Cassian said. You're not going out there alone, Alara said firmly. She turned to Leo. Honey, go upstairs and lock your door. Don't come out until we say so. Together, Cassian and Alara went outside. As they got closer, Cassian felt a weird feeling like he knew this man. Can we help you? Alara asked, her voice calm. The man gave a sad smile. Hello, little brother. Cassian froze. What did you say? My name is Silas Crow, the man said. But I was born Silas Thorne. Cassian stared in shock. I know this is a surprise, Silas said, raising his hands. I never planned to tell you, but when our mother called me to help her destroy your happiness, I knew it was time to tell the truth. Genevieve has another son? Alara whispered. Had, Silas corrected. She gave me up for adoption before she married your father. She couldn't let a scandal ruin her name. Years later, she found me. She paid me to keep quiet through a company called Griffin Enterprises. Cassian's mind raced. He remembered all the strange things from his childhood, his mother's mysterious monthly meetings, the way she sometimes stared at him with guilt. Why tell us now? Alara asked softly. Because she called me yesterday after you exposed her crimes, Silas said. She wanted me to dig up dirt on you, Alara. She thought I could find something to scare you away forever. But you refused, Cassian said slowly. I've spent my whole life watching her control everyone, watching her twist love into a weapon, Silas said, his voice breaking a little. When she told me about you two, I thought, finally, someone is brave enough to choose real love over her lies. Inside the house, Leo had been secretly listening. He ran outside suddenly. Does this mean you're my uncle? He asked Silas. Silas knelt down. His eyes were shiny. I suppose it does, if you'll have me. Do you like science? I'm building a robot for the science fair, Leo said excitedly. Silas smiled for real. I studied engineering before I became a detective. Maybe I can help you. Cassian watched them, his heart full of emotions. He felt angry at his mother, sad for his brother, and scared of what other secrets might be out there. Alara held his hand. Are you okay? She whispered. I don't know, Cassian admitted, but I do know this. I'm tired of secrets, tired of letting fear control our lives. He reached out his hand to Silas. Would you like to come inside? We have a lot to talk about. They all went inside, not noticing Genevieve's car parked down the street. Genevieve sat behind the wheel, her face like stone. So be it, she whispered. She pulled out her phone. If Silas won't help me, there's still one person who will. One person who hates Cassian as much as I do. She dialed a number she had saved for emergencies. Serafina, it's Genevieve Thorne. Remember when you said you'd do anything to get back at Cassian for the divorce? I think it's time we help each other. Serafina Thorne Chase stepped out of her fancy Mercedes. Her high heels clicked on the driveway as she walked to the Thorne mansion. It had been 3 years since the divorce, but she still looked like she belonged there. Her face was calm and perfect, but inside she was smiling. Genevieve's phone call had been a surprise, but it was exactly what she wanted. A chance to finally get revenge on Cassian for choosing his company over her. Inside the big Thorne mansion, the mood was much warmer than before. Silas had spent the afternoon helping Leo with his science project, showing him how to make things work and explaining every step. Cassian and Alara watched them from the couch, amazed at how quickly Silas and Leo had become friends. He's so good with Leo, Alara whispered softly. Cassian nodded slowly. He was still trying to understand the fact that he had a brother he had never known about. Makes me wonder what else Mother has been hiding from us all these years, he said. Just then the doorbell rang, breaking their peaceful moment. Anya, who had stayed late to help Cassian with some important financial documents, went to answer it. Mr. Thorne, Anya's voice sounded tight and worried. Your ex-wife is here. The room went completely silent. Leo's face turned pale. He hadn't seen his mother since the day she had left him and Cassian 3 years ago. Serafina swept into the room without waiting for anyone to invite her. She looked around the space with a proud, judgmental expression. Her sharp eyes stopped on Alara. Serafina noticed Alara's simple clothes and natural beauty, and her lips curled into a cruel smile. Well, well, Serafina said in a sweet but fake voice. Elena told me you were involved with the help, Cassian, but I had to see it for myself. Cassian's voice was calm but cold. What are you doing here, Serafina? Can a mother visit her son? She said, turning her attention to Leo. Leo, darling, aren't you going to give Mommy a hug? Leo stepped closer to Alara instead. You're not my mommy. You left us. Serafina's perfect smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly fixed it. I had my reasons, she said smoothly. Your father was so busy building his company. While you were busy collecting lovers behind my back, Cassian interrupted sharply. Ancient history, Serafina said with a wave of her hand. I'm here because I'm concerned. Elena showed me the news, financial scandals, SEC investigations, and now you're letting our son spend time with some gold-digging teacher. Alara stood up straight, her chin high. Mrs. Chase, I understand you're worried about Leo, but... Oh, spare me the caring act, Serafina snapped, cutting her off. I've done my research on you, Alara Baker, daughter of bankrupt parents, living in a tiny apartment, and now, out of nowhere, you just happen to fall in love with one of the wealthiest men in town? How convenient. That's enough, Cassian said sharply, his voice like a whip. You lost the right to judge my choices when you abandoned us. Serafina's smile turned sharp and dangerous. Did I? Because according to my lawyers, I still have partial custody rights. Rights I've been very generous not to use until now. Cassian's face went pale. In their bitter divorce, Serafina had kept partial custody, but she had never used it. You wouldn't, Cassian whispered. Try me. Serafina pulled out her phone. One call to my lawyer, and I can demand that Leo come live with me. After all, what judge would choose a scandal-plagued father and his working-class girlfriend over a stable, wealthy mother? Me, Silas said firmly, stepping forward. Serafina blinked, thrown off guard. And you are? Silas Crow, he said with a cold smile. Private investigator, and Cassian's brother. Her mouth dropped open, but Silas kept going. I've spent years documenting Elena's schemes. Would you like to know what else I've found? Maybe some evidence about your offshore accounts? The real reason you divorced Cassian? Serafina's smile trembled. You're bluffing. Am I? Silas pulled out a thick file. Shall we talk about the money you stole from Thorn Enterprises? The real reason you needed that divorce before Cassian figured it out? You can't prove. Actually, he can, a tired voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Elena stood there, looking older and more worn than they had ever seen her. I kept records of everything, Elena said calmly. I called it insurance. Serafina's face twisted with rage. You promised to help me. We had a deal. We did, Elena admitted, stepping into the room. But watching you now, threatening my grandson, I realized something. I've spent years protecting the Thorn name, but I forgot to protect the Thorn heart. She turned to Cassian. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I can try to make one thing right. She held out a USB drive. Everything's here, all the evidence of Serafina's theft, all my own mistakes. Do what you will. Leo, who had been quiet the whole time, ran to Elena and hugged her tightly. Everyone froze, surprised by his sudden affection. Does this mean you don't hate Miss Baker anymore? Leo asked innocently. Elena looked at Alara, really looked at her for the first time. She didn't see a threat anymore, but a woman who loved Leo with her whole heart. No, Leo, Elena said softly. I don't hate her. I was afraid of her, afraid of change, afraid of losing control. But I think, Elena's voice trembled, I think it's time I let go of that fear. How touching, Serafina sneered. But you're all forgetting something. I still have custody rights and I will use them. Unless what? Cassian demanded. Unless you're willing to pay me a lot to stay quiet. Before anyone could respond, Leo spoke up bravely. I want to go to court. Everyone turned to look at him. What? Serafina asked in shock. I want to tell the judge everything. Leo said, his voice clear and strong. About how you left us, about how Miss Baker helps me with homework and hugs me when I'm sad, about how Dad smiles again because of her, about how Grandmother is trying to be better. I'm not scared of you anymore, Mom. I have a real family now. Serafina looked around the room. Cassian, Alara, Silas, and Elena all stood together, united. She had lost, and she knew it. Fine, she spat. Keep your happy little family. But this isn't over. She stormed out, her heels clicking angrily on the floor. Elena turned to Cassian. There's one more thing you should know. About your father. About why I gave Silas up for adoption. Cassian took Alara's hand, needing her strength. I think it's time we heard the whole truth, Mother. All of it. Thunder rumbled outside, shaking the windows as if the sky itself was preparing for Elena's confession. The storm that had been building for months was finally about to break. Rain poured against the windows as Elena settled into her chair. Cassian sat in his wheelchair with Alara at his side. Silas leaned against the fireplace, and Leo curled up on the sofa, determined to hear everything. I met your father. Alistair Thorne when I was just 17, Elena began softly. He was 25 and already being groomed to take over his father's company. I was the daughter of his family's housekeeper. Cassian and Silas looked shocked. Their grandmother's high status had always seemed natural. We fell in love, Elena said, her voice trembling. But when I became pregnant with Silas, Alistair's father threatened to disinherit him if he married someone like me. Someone poor. Ironic. Isn't it? She glanced at Alara. Later, I would do the exact same thing to my own son. What happened? Cassian asked gently. Alistair wanted to give up everything for me, Elena said. But I couldn't let him. He was so brilliant. I wanted him to succeed. So I disappeared. I gave Silas up for adoption. I let Alistair believe I had an abortion. Tears ran down her cheeks. A year later, Alistair's father died. Alistair searched for me for months. When he finally found me, he didn't care about my background anymore. He married me and brought me into his world of wealth. But the guilt of giving up Silas, it changed me. You became obsessed with status, Silas said quietly. Yes, Elena whispered. I thought if I could make the Thorne name more respected, it would make up for my past. When Alistair died, that obsession grew stronger. I was terrified someone would discover where I came from and take everything away. So when Cassian fell in love with Alara, you saw yourself, Cassian said softly. Yes, but instead of feeling compassion, I felt fear. Fear that history would repeat itself. Fear of being rejected by society. I convinced myself Alara was a threat, but she was really a mirror, showing me what I had become. Leo spoke up from the couch. But you were brave in the end, grandmother. You helped stop Serafina. Elena smiled sadly. Only because you showed me what bravery looks like, sweetheart. You, your father, Alara, you were all willing to risk everything for love, just like Alistair and I once were. She went to a cabinet and took out an old photograph. This was the day Alistair and I reunited before I learned to hide my real smile, before I became the perfect socialite. In the photo, a young Elena glowed with happiness as a man who looked just like Cassian twirled her in his arms. I'd forgotten, Elena whispered. I'd forgotten what real happiness feels like. Cassian wheeled closer to her. What are you going to do now? First, I'll tell the SEC everything, she said firmly. No more deals, no more hiding, just the truth, and then I'll do what I should have done 25 years ago. I'll acknowledge Silas as my son. She reached for Silas's hand. If you'll let me, I'd like to try being a real mother to both of you. Cassian looked at Alara, who nodded encouragingly. I think we'd all like that, he said softly. Leo jumped up. Does this mean we can have more picnics in the garden? And Uncle Silas can help with my science projects? And can Miss Baker? Alara, Elena corrected gently. I think it's time we called her Alara. 6 months later, the Thorne mansion looked completely different. The cold, fancy furniture had been replaced with comfortable chairs and sofas that could handle Leo's boundless energy. The walls were full of happy family photos, not just formal portraits. Elena had served 3 months of house arrest and was now doing community service, teaching business skills at a women's shelter. To her surprise, people admired her real-life story more than her fake high society image. Silas had moved his private investigation office into the city, but he came over for family dinners all the time. Thanks to his engineering skills, Leo had won first place in the state science fair, and his trophy was displayed proudly in the living room. Serafina had given up all custody rights in exchange for not going to prison for her crimes. She had moved to Europe, where she could pretend the scandal never happened. Cassian had made great progress too. He could walk short distances now, though he still used a wheelchair for longer ones. But his biggest change was inside. He had learned to trust again, to love again, and to believe in second chances. On a warm spring evening, the family gathered in the garden where Leo had first met Alara. Fairy lights sparkled in the trees, chairs were lined up neatly for a wedding ceremony. Leo, dressed in a sharp little suit, proudly carried the ring pillow down the aisle. Elena, elegant in a pale blue dress, sat in the front row next to Silas, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. At the altar, Cassian stood tall, supported by a beautiful cane but standing on his own 2 feet. When Alara appeared wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of wildflowers, everyone gasped. She looked radiant, glowing with happiness. The minister began, "Dearly beloved." But Leo couldn't hold back. "Can I say something first?" The minister smiled and nodded. Leo turned to face the guests. "A long time ago, I was really sad and lonely. But then Miss Baker found me in the park. She gave me cookies. She helped me be brave, and she helped Dad be brave too. And then Grandmother learned to be brave again. Now we're all brave together." Everyone laughed and cried at the same time. Cassian squeezed Alara's hand, remembering the dark day he had woken from his coma and found a stranger in his home. Now he couldn't imagine life without her. "I love you," he whispered as the minister continued. "All of you, the teacher, the healer, the friend, every part of you that helped make us whole again." Alara's eyes shone with tears. "And I love all of you. The businessman who became human again, the father who would do anything for his son, the man who chose love over what society expected." They sealed their vows with a kiss as Leo cheered. Elena wept happy tears. Silas squeezed her hand, silently forgiving her. The sun set over the garden, painting the sky with pink and gold. The Thorn Mansion, once a cold, empty symbol of wealth, had finally become a warm, loving home. Inside its walls, a broken family had been healed, made stronger by all the pain they had faced together. As stars twinkled above, they danced in the garden. The teacher and the businessman, the private investigator and the reformed socialite, and one very happy little boy who had started it all with his tears in the park. Sometimes love comes disguised as loss. Sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest mornings. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to listen to your heart, you'll find that family isn't about blood or money or what society says. Family is about the people who stay by your side through every storm, who help you find the light again, who teach you that the greatest gift any family can give isn't wealth or power. It's love. Pure, simple love. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. We'll see you again soon with another moving tale. Until then, keep listening, keep feeling, and remember, love always wins.